Hello, friends. I'm so excited that you are here with me today to start this first day of our Power Over Prolapse Challenge. So each day at the beginning of the presentation, I'm going to give you kind of like a mindset thought or like a thought of the day to challenge you. And so my thought today is doing versus thinking. Okay, so basically, and I have a lot of notes, but I also just like to talk too. So I'll look at my notes sometimes, and then sometimes I'll talk, and I might go off track a little bit, but that's okay. So doing versus thinking. The distance between your goals and your reality is called action. Take the first step. Pick the smallest action that will get you closer to your goal. All right, so what does that mean kind of in real life? So let's just use an example of a messy kitchen. Okay, so you had breakfast and the breakfast dishes are all over the place and you need to put the food up, but then you've already started lunch because you're that planner and you're thinking ahead, and then maybe you even went grocery shopping in between, so you have all those bags of groceries that need to be put up, and looking at that mess, it can be really overwhelming, like, where do I start? Okay, so this thought, doing versus thinking, start with something small. Take one small step towards your goal of a clean kitchen. Okay, so one small step for you might look like, okay, I'm going to put up the milk. All right, so you took one small step towards a clean kitchen. If you had just thought about taking that small step and you had thought about putting the milk away, but you didn't actually do it, you really wouldn't have contributed to your goal. And so the same thing is with the same concept applies to power over prolapse. So taking one small step to having power over prolapse, and that's what you're doing today. You are here and you are taking action. So you're taking that one small step to having power over prolapse. And I'm so glad that you're here. I'm honored, I'm thrilled, and it's just really exciting. Okay, so before we get started, I think most of you know a little bit about my background, but my name is Jeanice Mitchell, and I'm a pelvic health physical therapist. I live in Central Texas area, and I've been a physical therapist since 1995. So it's really been a privilege. I'm going to share my story here in just a little bit, but basically, since early 2000s, I have been focusing and emphasizing pelvic health. And so it's really been an honor. I was able to open up a private practice, and now we have several locations. And then I started my PFM a couple years ago it's a nonprofit. And my goal with my PFM is to reach people beyond my physical sphere. Because over the years, I'm working with people one-on-one in the clinic, and it's amazing to help people achieve their goals. But then you're also thinking, okay, there's people around the world that will never be able or never will, for whatever reason, actually go see a pelvic health physical therapist. So what are some tools? What are some things that we can do to improve pelvic health? And so that was really the beginning of my PFM. And so here we are. All right. So I have a couple disclaimers before we get started. I'm a physical therapist, but I'm not your physical therapist. So the information that I'm providing isn't personal medical advice for you. It's information to increase your awareness of your body and how it works. But it doesn't replace evaluation by a qualified healthcare provider. And then there's a few red flags. This is going to be a little hard to see. But basically, if you're having any of these, and I'm going to go through each one, these are warning signs. So a red flag is like a stoplight, right? Like, stop! There's something going on that needs further investigation. So if you have any of these, make sure that you get checked out. It's still fine and wonderful for you to be here in the challenge, but in terms of starting an exercise program and starting a therapy program, really make sure you get these checked out first. So unexplained bleeding or pain, trauma, fever, chills, night sweats, unexplained weight loss or unexplained weight gain, altered mental status, meaning that you're not oriented, like person, place, and time. You're not sure where you are. And then depression or suicidal thoughts. So if you have any of those, make sure that you get checked out. All right, here we go. So why do I care so much about prolapse? This is the first time really that I've shared this publicly. I've shared little snippets here and there, and I just kind of want to give you a perspective. I really am a private person. And this, before my PFM, before I started sharing on social media, I hadn't talked about myself and the struggles that I had gone through with my family. They didn't know. And so it's really easy for me to say, hey, now, let's talk about it. Tell your aunts, tell your daughters, so and so. But I'm there, it's a very private, personal thing, and sometimes you don't want to share. But I really want to say that social media and being able to connect with people, especially in the Instagram community, has been really empowering for me and affirming. I started off in with my PFM with stock photos. I didn't want my face. I didn't want video of me, much less, telling my story. So here we are a couple years later, and I'm doing it more, but I'm still nervous. So, all right, starting at the beginning, because I think it's important to kind of frame your history. And as I'm learning more and more, I'm seeing that I had risk factors even back when I was a child, but I didn't know at the time that was risk factors, that those were risk factors. Okay, so I've always been a very bendy, flexible person, and I still am. If you see some of the stretches and things that I'm putting on Instagram. So my friends would laugh that I can do crazy things with my joints and, super duper flexible. And, I knew that I had some older female relatives that had had surgery for pelvic issues, and maybe I had heard the term fallen bladder, but I didn't really know anything about that, and I didn't really want to know anything about that either. Like, oh, what's that about? Let's just leave that to when we get older, and then I'll figure it out then if I have to, but hopefully not. All right, so then fast forward. So basically, I had some family history, and I also had some connective tissue risk factors there, being a very flexible person. Fast forward to my first pregnancy in 1999. So throughout the end of my second trimester and my third trimester throughout, my OB, when I would go in for my check, she would check me and she was like, oh, Jeanice, this baby is so low. You're carrying the baby so low. And, I could insert my finger into my vaginal canal and right at that middle knuckle, I could feel the baby's head at my fingertip, so I wasn't worried about either of those things. They didn't really impact me. Okay, well, the baby's low, I can feel the baby, so forth. So then I had the baby, and I had some significant perineal trauma, and after birth, I had difficulty controlling my bowels, controlling my bladder. I had some damage to my anal sphincter muscles that are part of the pelvic floor muscles. I broke my tailbone. At that time, my husband and I were living in a third floor apartment. And so I'm going up and down the steps. And put this in perspective, you have the baby, you have the car seat, you have the diaper bag, you have your purse, maybe you have the stroller, and you have all of this damage to your pelvic floor, and then you're loading it with all of this and going up and down flights of stairs. I wasn't told that maybe I should be cautious about what I'm lifting and allow my body's time to heal and repair. I wasn't told anything about my pelvic health or my pelvic floor. It wasn't discussed in my family. It wasn't discussed with my medical providers. It just wasn't talked about. And also, to put this in perspective, so this is 1999. we didn't have a computer, we didn't have internet, we didn't have cell phones, social media didn't exist. So I know that if you are, like I'm 48 now, right? So that seems like a whole other generation. When I talk to my children, I'm like, remember, just in my lifetime, not that long ago, we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have internet. And so we've come so far now, and I think it's phenomenal that we are able to share this way and have access to, great information on social media. But that being said, there was just very little out there. And so I'm a healthy physical therapist, I was 27 when I had my first baby. And so I'm having these symptoms and I'm thinking, what do I do? This isn't normal. But I didn't know what to do. Even at that time, we didn't talk about the pelvic floor in physical therapy school. We didn't dissect it. It wasn't talked about. Okay, so I saw a little ad in a PT journal, a physical therapy journal, for a pelvic floor class. And so I really went there in hopes of getting information to learn about my own body and why these symptoms were happening, and hopefully to heal my body. And so it was a very selfish motivation. And that first morning of the anatomy lecture, it was just inspirational and overwhelming. How amazingly our bodies are designed and how they function. And so we're going to go over some of that anatomy today. I'm going to share it with you. So it was just really incredible. And at that point, it was really a pivotal point in my personal life, and then also my career-wise. Like, how can I have this information and not share it with other people? People need to know this information. And so that was a life-changing moment. So with pelvic physical therapy, we practice everything that we do on our patients, on each other first, and we learn. And so the morning after the lecture on pelvic organ prolapse, like as I'm going through the lecture, I'm like, maybe that kind of makes sense with, some things that my older female relatives had experienced, but, it wasn't connecting with me. And so we had our lab. And so my lab partner is brand new too. And so she's checking me for pelvic organ prolapse. And she's like, hey, Jeanice, do you mind if I call the instructor over? I'm not sure about this. And so I'm like, oh, sure. Instructor comes over, and she's this world famous physical therapist called Holly Herman. So Holly's like, Jeanice, do you mind if we call the class over? I'm like, no, it's fine. So the whole class comes over, and she explains that she can see my anterior vaginal wall, or starting to drop, and the posterior vaginal wall. So there's a lot of different names for prolapse, but basically it was a cystocele and a rectocele that she could see at that time. And that was kind of confusing to me because I didn't have a sensation of a vaginal bulge. I did have some heaviness, but I just had a baby and I was carrying all this stuff up and down 3 flights of stairs. So it really, I hadn't connected this at all with pelvic organ prolapse. So, all right, I have pelvic organ prolapse, and I find these wonderful strategies to help heal myself in this class. One of the core foundational concepts was pelvic floor muscle training, and then also pelvic bracing, so bracing that pelvic floor and your deep abdominal muscles, and avoiding constipation and straining. So learning some of these techniques and then applying them to myself. And then at that time is when I started at my private practice as well. I was like, okay, let's just do it. And that's a whole nother presentation. So fast forward to baby number 2. I had baby number 2, and she was a big baby, and she was a vacuum assisted delivery. And so I tore, this is the vaginal opening right here. So I tore going down, and I tore going up towards the urethra. And it was a very painful process. Even urination was painful. And then the first time that I got up and I was taking a shower, I immediately felt a vaginal bulge. And so I was like, okay, I need help. and there wasn't a pelvic physical therapist in my area. So I knew someone in Houston that had a great reputation. And so my husband and I drove down there for the day, and she assessed me. She gave me confidence. She said, yes, this is what's happening. And she gave me a home program, and it reinforced some of those earlier concepts. But at that time, I also started with with using gravity. And so we're going to talk about that more this week, but using gravity can help you when your pelvic floor muscles are very weak. And then it can also challenge you when you're ready for more of a challenge. And so that's a really nice tool. And I started using electrical stimulation as well. And so that really helped to kind of give my pelvic floor muscles a jump start. And so it was a healing process. By no means did I heal overnight. Something interesting also that one of my older friends, she's from Puerto Rico, and she said, Jeanice, you know, and this was within that first 6 weeks postpartum. She's like, Jeanice, in my family, after birth, we always use support. We always use support. You need some support. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I tried like Spanx or Spanx type garments, and it really did kind of give a nice lift and support. And so with some of those strategies that I just discussed, I got to the point where I wasn't symptomatic. And then baby number 3, I went into that pregnancy and postpartum having a plan. I knew what was going on with my body. If I had a symptom, I knew what to do to address. I had a very clear plan for how postpartum was going to go, what I was going to do for my pelvic floor muscle training. I had my electrical stimulation unit ready, and I was set to go. And so that postpartum recovery was very, very smooth. And it all, of course, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like it was pain-free, but I knew what was happening with my body, and I knew what to do when those things happened. And so I would say that that is the most empowering thing, is to understand and be educated about what is happening with your body. And then when you have a symptom, whatever it be, having an algorithm to say, okay, this is happening, so let me do this, or this is happening, so let me do this, or let me modify this. And we're going to go over this summary of this strategy, and I'll give you some tips throughout the week. But that's really what I want you to kind of walk away with, is being empowered, understanding where your symptoms are coming from, why they're there, and then understanding that there are things that you can do. And there's a multitude of things. All right. So now we're going to go. I was timing this and I was hoping to stay within 20 to 30 minutes. We're probably going to go beyond that. But, you know, this is being recorded. So if you're not able to stay for the whole thing live, you can check it out later as well. Now we're going to jump into pelvic floor muscles. So let's just dig into the meat of it. Here is a pelvis. Okay. So if you can imagine that your pelvis is kind of like a bowl, can you kind of visualize that bowl? And on the outside of the bowl are your bones. Okay, so these are your bones on the outside of that pelvic bowl. Inside the bowl, you have your pelvic organs, so the bladder, the uterus, and the rectum. And then at the bottom of the bowl are your pelvic floor muscles. So it's a little tricky to keep her symmetrical here, but that's the vaginal opening, that's the anus, and we're going to go over a lot more pictures. But basically, that's the concept there. The pelvic floor muscles stretch from the pubic bone in the front to the tailbone in the back. They're kind of like hammocks. So check out this image here. So you can see this would be the pubic bone in the front and the tailbone in the back. This hammock here, those are your pelvic floor muscles. Here's the bladder, the uterus, and the rectum. And so let's look at this other anatomy image here. So this is a female side view. Let me actually show you this here. So we have our pelvis here, and we're opening the pelvis, which is really, really cool. So we're opening the pelvis. This right here is your pubic bone. I'm playing with the camera because it's reversing what I'm doing. So if I look kind of distorted, that's what's happening. So I'm going to actually show you on the image here. But again, you can just see that this is the side view of the organs. So this is a female that's cut in half, and we're looking at the inside of her right internal organ. So this would be like her cut right down the middle, and we're looking at her inside organ. So here's the pubic bone in the front, and that would be the abdominal muscles, tailbone and the spine. This is the bladder. And so the bladder is where urine is stored. And then it has a canal called the urethral canal. So that's where urine exits. Here's the uterus. That's where the baby it grows and lives. And then here's the vaginal canal. And this is where the baby exits. And then here is the rectum. And this is for stool. And then this is the anal canal where poop and gas exit. All right. Your pelvic floor muscles connect here at the pubic bone and then stretch all the way back to the tailbone. So literally, like you saw that image before, it's like this hammock that's going front to back. Now, the cool thing is that it also goes side to side. So a lot of times people think, oh, it's just one little Kegel muscle, but that is not the case. So here's our pelvis, kind of like we showed before, but here is the pubic bone in front, tailbone in back. And the muscles go front to back and then also side to side. And that's what we're looking at here. Pubic bone, tailbone. You can see all of these red striated structures are pelvic floor muscles. And you have several layers. Let's go over, this would be the urethra opening. That's where urine exits. That's the vaginal opening, and then that's the anus. And so remember what I talked about when I said that I had that tear after my second baby, that I tore up towards the urethra, and then I also tore down towards the anus. And then with the first baby, I tore down to the anus and affected some of those fibers there around the external anal sphincter. The muscles that are really important for pelvic organ prolapse are the deeper muscles in here. And you can see when you look inside this bowl, how nicely they are supported there. And then again, they go side to side. All right. So that's a summary of the anatomy. So what does the pelvic floor do? It has multiple jobs and multiple functions. We're focusing on the supportive function today. So basically, it's like a little miniature trampoline at the base of your pelvis. So here's another example of the pelvic floor. So this ring here is kind of like your bones on the outside, and then this fabric is like your stretchy pelvic floor muscles kind of at the base, the floor of your pelvis. And this is a pretend bladder. So we're going to put that there. This is a pretend uterus. And then this is a pretend rectum. And so we're adding all of those organs there to the pelvic floor. And you can see that that pelvic floor needs to support those organs. If that pelvic floor wasn't there to help support the organs from below, what would happen? Well, the organs would fall or drop, right? And so that's essentially what pelvic organ prolapse is. I'm going to give you the official definition here. So basically, I thought I actually had the OG statement here. Well, there's an official definition from the American Urogynecologic Society. And basically it's saying that pelvic organ prolapse is when the organs descend from their original position due to weakened tissue and weakened muscles, and they drop. And so I'm going to show you some pictures of that. I think it's really important, and this is the fundamental to having power over prolapse here, is that support from below must equal or exceed pressure from above, or the organs will start to fall. And there's a lot of things that, that go into support and that also go into pressure. But going back to our hammock here, so if I was straining really hard, that's putting a lot more pressure on that pelvic floor, right? And so it needs to function. It needs to be kind of like that trampoline, that it gives and rebounds back up, gives and rebounds back up. That's a healthy pelvic floor, and that's our ultimate goal. Okay, here is our image again here, our side view of the hammock. Pubic bone, tailbone, nice healthy pelvic floor. It's lifting the organs. You can see the bladder, uterus, and rectum are all elevated. Now, here's one example. You can see now that that pelvic floor is kind of dropping, right? It's sagging. The bladder is starting to collapse there and bulge down just a little bit. And then let's look at our actual side view again. So remember, this is the female side view. And here is, remember the bladder and the urethral canal, uterus and the vaginal canal, and then the rectum and the anal canal, and your pelvic floor muscles wrap around each of those canals and also support those organs. Pay special attention here to this. Okay, so this is the vagina, and we label the vagina based on how it's sitting in the body. So this wall here is the anterior wall, and then this wall here is the posterior wall. We're not going to dive into all the details and specifics, but I think it's really important to look at this wall and look at the bladder there. Now, this is pelvic organ prolapse. So basically the bladder is starting to collapse into the vaginal wall. And what can happen is that it can fall and fall and fall and even be a bulge that comes out. And the same thing can happen with the uterus and the rectum. So that's kind of a summary of what pelvic organ prolapse looks like and what happens there. Here it is. So I knew I had that in here. So pelvic organ prolapse, this is the statement from OGS, occurs when the pelvic floor muscles and connective tissue weaken or tear. This causes pelvic organs to fall downward into the vagina, similar to a hernia. Women may feel or see tissue coming out of the opening of the vagina as this progresses. And going back to this statement here, support from above must equal or exceed, support from below must equal or exceed pressure from above, or the organs will start to drop or fall. It sounds terrifying. I totally get that. And going back to my own story, because there were so many notes that I had on that. I have a grade 3 cystocele, which is where the bladder is dropping into that vaginal canal. And I have a grade 2 rectocele. And I honestly think that it might be more severe than that, because I was tested at 9 a.m. in the morning lying down. And so as you'll continue to see throughout the week, when you take gravity out of the equation, pelvic organ prolapse kind of repositions itself to where we want the organ. And usually symptoms are less in the morning and they get worse in the latter part of the day as you're up and active throughout the day. All right, so I totally get it. I'm there, but I'm here to tell you that you can have power over prolapse. There are a lot of options out there. Millions of people have prolapse. You're not alone. In fact, some of the research shows that over half of people that have a vaginal delivery will have prolapse. And I'm not here to go over all the statistics today and all of the research, but basically just understand that you're not alone, and I am living proof and testament that you can have power over prolapse. It's kind of frozen. There we go. Prolapse can have a huge impact on your quality of life. This is something else I want to say, because it's heartbreaking. You guys in that community, I love that you're sharing, that you're encouraging each other, and that you're supporting each other. I know that pelvic organ prolapse can be a really devastating thing mentally and physically. Just know that you are beautiful. But I know that it can have a huge impact on your quality of life. So it can affect your sexual function. It can affect how you feel about yourself. It can, sometimes intercourse can be painful. You can have bowel symptoms and bladder symptoms, and it can affect your activity level. So it can have a huge impact on your quality of life. But remember, doing versus thinking. There is hope and help, and you're taking that first step towards power over prolapse because you are here today. I have a mindset mantra that I want you to actually say with me, okay? So I want you to say, you're going to repeat after me, and I want you to say it with conviction. If you're alone, and if you're not alone and you feel comfortable saying it out loud, I really do want you to say these things after me. The advantage of being in person with this is that we could hear each other say it. Over a webinar, you really can't hear each other say it, but we don't want to say, I am not broken. Does that sound like I'm convicted that I'm not broken, or I'm not broken? No, I am not broken. Okay, so on 3, 2, 1, I want you to repeat after me. 3, 2, 1. I am not broken. Believe it too. Okay, and remember, the more you tell yourself, the more things actually become a reality. My life is not over, or my life is not over. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. I want to say it together. 3, 2, 1. My life is not over. You do not have to let prolapse have power over you. You can have power over prolapse. I am strong. So 3, 2, 1. Repeat after me. Oh, wait, 3, 2, 1. I am strong. All right. Feel it, believe it. Again, I am beautiful, or I am beautiful. 3, 2, 1. Repeat after me. 3, 2, 1. I am beautiful. Believe it. And then the last message here is, with help, I can do what I love with who I love. Do we want to say, with help, I can? No, we want to believe that. And help comes in a variety of forms, okay? So 3, 2, 1, repeat after me. 3, 2, 1. With help, I can do what I love with who I love. Believe it. And I want you to repeat these things throughout the day. So when you are feeling discouraged, or you're feeling not sexy, you're feeling weak, you're feeling symptoms, say these things with me. I am not broken. My life is not over. I am strong. I am beautiful. And with help, I can do what I love with who I love without pain, pressure, or leaks. So that's my challenge for you, but you have some homework. What are the top 3 things that would be better in your life if you didn't have to worry about prolapse? I want you to start thinking about that. And then in the email that you're going to get today, there's going to be an attachment that you can download this homework and fill it out. Excuse me. And I would love for those of you that feel comfortable sharing in the Kajabi community, share with each other. What are the top 3 things that would be better in your life if you didn't have to worry about prolapse? This is what the homework is going to look like when you get it in your email. We also, if you're in the Kajabi community, you'll see that I had this idea last week to contact some of my favorite vendors and also professionals and see if they would donate different things to this challenge. And so we're going to have giveaways, free giveaways each day. They're not paying me to do this. These are products and people that I believe in and that I have tried, okay, and that I use. So today's giveaway is from EVB Sports. Okay, so these are a pair of shorts, and they are special because they have built-in perineal support. All right. A lot of people wear these like under a pair of jogging shorts or under a pair of exercise shorts, and they come in different colors. So here's a black pair, and these are a little bit longer. So basically there's some options there. I'm going to have a reel that I'm going to post in a few hours on Instagram. It is a crazy reel, and I am being a little silly, but my point is that you can jump around and you can hop and you can do a lot of things. Like, these shorts are super supportive. So I encourage you to check those out. Check out that Instagram, and I'll link it in the community. So you could just click on the button if you need to. All right, that's the free giveaway. Now, my next steps for today. So first, check your email and download homework. Number 2, post the homework to the Kajabi community if you feel comfortable with it. 3, share a word of encouragement or support to someone else. I think that's probably one of my favorite things about this community, is to see people reaching out and connecting with people and offering encouragement. Enter the giveaway on Instagram, and then practice that power over prolapse mantra. Let's do it one more time together. I am not broken. My life is not over. I am strong. I am beautiful. And with help, I can do what I love with who I love. You guys, thank you so much for joining. It's really an honor to be with you. Tomorrow we'll be back here again at 11 a.m. Eastern time, which is New York City time. We're also doing duplicate sessions each day. So I'm doing the same talk at 8 p.m. Eastern time today. So I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks again for joining. I really appreciate you. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Oh, and I am recording this, so I'll post the links as well. Thank you guys. Bye.